All right, welcome to our online participants. Again, my name is Todd Shechter, I serve as Chief Technology Officer for our university, and we're going to be talking about RISE today. First point to begin with is, what is RISE? So RISE is a very large faculty hiring initiative that was launched about a year ago now, maybe a little bit over a year. And it RISE is this thing that we're all going to be a part of that has a goal of adding roughly 150 faculty members to our university on top of normal attrition. When you think of 150 faculty members, that's a lot. That's a big college, that's a big school. And then each of those faculty members represents a research group of folks. So 5 to 6 people maybe to start off with a research group. We're easily talking 1,000 individuals who are added to our university. And we're going to talk a lot about collaboration today. And as this RISE effort came together, there were a number of different communities on campus that a number of different academic deans who were asked to put proposals together for how would you bring multiple schools and colleges, departments, divisions together in support of RISE. And that's where these three kind of sub-themes, if you will, of RISE came from. So the first being RISE AI or RISE Artificial Intelligence, and really looking to think about not only some of the fundamental pieces of AI, machine learning, and automation, but more importantly, how can AI be applied across the university? And so the 34 different faculty members who are doing this, they're spread across multiple schools and colleges, CALS Engineering, SMPH, Education, SOHI, et cetera. All of those deans had to come together and agree that RISE AI is something that we want to do together as a set of deans, not individual schools and colleges. The second area, RISE Earth, thinking about sustainability and ways that we can help further our environment. This is 40 different faculty members, and you can see the schools, departments, and areas that they came from. Again, these are areas, though, that you may not expect to see a RISE Earth hire in. So the Nelson Institute, the law school, education. Again, each of the deans in these areas had to come together and agree that we think this is important. We're going to propose RISE Earth to the provost, to the chancellor. They agreed, and all of these schools and colleges are coming together. The third area that was announced is RISE Thrive, and this is 41 faculty members that have been invited and will be joining our university. And RISE Thrive thinks a lot about immunology and this concept of health span, or the amount of time that we remain healthy and free of disease. And again, this is another one of these areas where multiple schools and colleges had to come together. This is more than the School of Medicine and Public Health. This is nursing, this is vet med, again, law, engineering, CALS. All of these deans had to come together and think about how do we propose ways that our schools and colleges can work together. So in all, there's roughly 120 of the 150 faculty members that have been allocated so far, and hopefully in the future, we will see additional areas added to the RISE initiative. One of the questions that I get often are, what are some of the goals that are associated with RISE? And I thought we would talk a little bit about RISE AI, kind of being an IT and community, and think about these goals apply to the other two initiatives as well, but we'll talk about RISE AI specifically. So number one, to attract and attain top-notch faculty. And I would say over the course of the last year, we've been very active as an IT community helping to do that. One of the things that we've done, maybe for the first time ever, is to have research computing be actively embedded in the faculty recruiting process. I see Pete and some others that are nodding their heads in agreement on that. That's been really powerful because in order to attract and attain these top-notch faculty, we want to show them all of the amazing things that you will see, you will experience, you will have access to when you come to UW-Madison. And so much of that are the people that care and are going to be here to support you as you begin your career at Madison. This has given us the opportunity to have conversations around data sharing, around data security, around data engineering and software engineering in ways that we haven't done in the past. A huge goal of RISE AI is around extramural funding. This is funding in support of research, This is funding that goes beyond some of the traditional areas that we've looked for funding. When we think about industry funding, when we think about foundation funding, clearly the landscape has changed with some of the national partners that we used to rely on for funding. So how do we think differently about where we bring funding in, where we apply to funding in support of RISE AI? And then also thinking about going beyond research. A huge part of RISE is thinking about what are these new faculty members going to bring to us that is applied in the classroom? How can we extend what happens from a research computing perspective to the teaching and learning missions of the university? And that's something that I'm excited to see what happens in the future. We're bringing all these new faculty members to campus. Clearly, they're going to have new ideas. They're going to have new expectations from a teaching and learning perspective. And when we think about research computing, how can what we do in the research computing area in support of RISE extend to teaching and learning? There's some examples that are starting to emerge from that, and we'll talk about those just a little bit later. So another question that I often get is who makes decisions about RISE? This was and continues to be a strategic initiative that is driven by the chancellor and the provost. Chancellor Mnookin launched this, and she has been very supportive of all that we've done in support of RISE over the last year and change. Um, if you hear the provost talk, he also talks about the importance of RISE in helping us think differently as a university, helping us think about collaboration differently than maybe we have in the past, helping us think about how we scale our operations differently than we have in the past. There's a set of cross-campus stakeholders here that are listed. The academic deans, the vice chancellor's office for research, all of those have played pivotal points in helping us bring RISE forward. I'll point out that we also here have a RISE Research Computing Subcommittee. Some of the folks in this room sit on that subcommittee. We've been working together for the past year to think about investments in research computing to help support the RISE initiative and how we can scale our existing operations. So kind of lots of involvement here from different folks in schools and colleges. If you've been on one of those committees, my gratitude to your time and energy, the ideas that you've brought to help us move together forward. So I think it's interesting also to look at where these faculty members are ending up in as we've begun this program. This graph accounts for the last 2 years or so of faculty hiring, as well as what will be moving into next year. And it's interesting to me to see kind of where at the university these different faculty members will be joining us. No surprise, letters in science, engineering, school medicine, public health, and so on, and all the way down to pharmacy. So every school and college is now represented as part of RISE, and this is kind of where we expect faculty hiring to reside and to end up as we move forward. I think it's also been interesting to see some of the trends in the faculty hiring that is happening. So as part of the preparation for this presentation and another one I did, I started looking at the research areas, both that we are hiring for, as well as the research areas that people bring with them as they're applying to these positions. And it some themes kind of came out, and some themes began to show in the RISE AI area. What I think is interesting here is that it's not so much in traditional AI where we're talking about large language models and building large language models. It's how AI is applied and how AI is applied in the second example there to help improve urban and rural economies. That's an example straight out of the business school where several of their faculty members are thinking about how to apply AI to improve rural Wisconsin, to improve economies in rural Wisconsin. In RISE Earth, thinking about how can we use AI to mitigate some of the impacts of climate change on agriculture in Wisconsin, to mitigate the impacts of climate change on economies and communities in Wisconsin. And then in the Thrive area, a number of researchers beginning to think about approaches to chronic inflammatory diseases. and how we can use AI to govern metabolic functions. Again, this is just a snapshot, if you will, of where we're seeing research interests in the RISE faculty members. And it'll be, I think, very interesting for all of us to see how that materializes and where this takes us moving forward. It's been interesting to watch the RISE effort move forward. And I think those of us in IT that work across this university, we see some of the struggles and some of the opportunity space, and sometimes how hard it can be to work across such a distributed university. And I will say that others who have been running this RISE program have experienced some of those same struggles as well. And we've noted that uh, it really takes collaboration. And in IT, we're good at doing that. We do this every day. We think about how we work together across the university. We think about how we support each other, about how the services that we provide support each other and enable innovation in our schools and colleges. The RISE program has experienced some of those same things that we see in AI every day. Um, an area that's kind of been new to RISE and thinking about the university is our facilities group. Um, our facilities group has had to think about what kind of physical space is necessary for these new faculty members. Are they going to need wet lab? Are they going to need dry lab? Are they going to need lab space at all? And how do we plan for that? Very, very similar to how we think in IT about the technology needs of new faculty members. And then as often is the case, thinking about ways that we communicate better, thinking about ways that schools and colleges and departments communicate. RISE hiring happens at the department level, and at the same time, we're trying to manage this and help guide this at the university level. And so it's been very important for us to think about communication pathways uh, from things that are happening at individual departments and how those work to inform some of these strategic initiatives that we take on as a university. So maybe shifting gears a little bit, talking about some of the investments that are being made specific to Rise AI. And we'll talk about these through a couple different lenses moving forward. As folks know, we are midway through the process of envisioning what our next campus research data center will look like. That's a major undertaking. The amount of compute power that our faculty members are asking for now is far and above anything that we've seen before. And so as a university, we want to be prepared for that. And we have a request for proposal that is midway through a public process right now that is going to help us envision what does that next generation data center look like, and how do we provide for the needs of faculty members who are coming into our campus. Um, we're making some investments, some big investments in computing hardware. I'll talk about more of this specifically here coming up. And then also the critical human aspect of computing infrastructure. We talk a lot about computing hardware. The human aspects of infrastructure are just as important, if not more important, to this RISE initiative. And then faculty startup packages being another big area of funding. For those who aren't familiar with how this works, when you're a new faculty member and you come to our campus, you are given a startup package that effectively is money to help you get started. This is money to help you begin your research project, to build your research team, to hire graduate students, perhaps to hire a data scientist. And the hope is that this is seed funding that allows you time to get started so that you can then go get external funding from different grants, foundations, et cetera. But this is kind of seed funding to help you get started. And so some of the faculty startup packages that I've seen are in excess of $1 million a piece. There's one in the School of Music actually that is all AI based and is $1.2 million of compute hardware. That's a letters and science faculty member in the School of Music. That's not someone in computer science. That's not someone in engineering. This is what we mean when we talk about applied AI in different forms around the university. I just saw Sue nod her head on that one. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But the faculty startup packages, it's a big deal. And so, over the next 5 years, spending well over $100 million in support of Rise AI. Some folks may have heard of the $15 million grant that we got from the Wisconsin Alumni Research Foundation. That grant is going very specifically to uh, areas of research computing that will extend our reach in kind of three different major areas. So research infrastructure, so the hardware that's necessary, GPU servers, data storage that are going to be used to help advance our AI research. Again, the human infrastructure. WARF is paying directly for 20 new research computing support staff that will be added to our campus over the next year or two. Some of those folks are being hired right now. There's a number of searches that are actively open, and interviews are happening kind of as we speak. I was in two of them myself yesterday. And then also for managing large data sets. And I think this is an interesting one because as we've talked as a research computing subcommittee, as we've talked with deans and associate deans for research, the way that we manage data on this campus comes up time and time again in discussion. And that how maybe historically individual groups have maintained and had access to pockets of data. Moving forward with the RISE initiative, it's going to be about how we bring that data together. How do we expose the data that one group may have to the benefit of another group? Ryan here from social sciences, they have a number of different data sets that they have access to, and those are great. How do we combine that data with data that Ken next to him from the School of Medicine and Public Health might have access to? How do we bring those kinds of data sets together? There's some interesting ideas about metadata and layers that describe our data. There's an interesting project that's going to be coming up, which is effectively a catalog of the data sets that we have access to on campus. Not necessarily to say everyone gets access to these, but if at least as a starting place, that if I know a data set exists, I can go talk to Jason in the School of Education and say, Jason, I think this data set might be really valuable to my research. How do I get access to that? How can I collaborate with that data set? So more to come here, but I think this is one where, as an IT community, it's going to be very important for us to think about not only the compute, not only the people, and also the data. And how do we help people collaborate with data and make the best use of the different data sets that we have open and available to us? So on a fairly specific side here, there are 5 different groups that are getting funding from this first phase of RISE Research Computing Support funding. Those groups are the Center for High Throughput Computing, the Data Science Institute, the Data Science Hub, the Research Cyber Infrastructure Group within the Division of Information Technology, and the School of Medicine and Public Health's IT and Informatics Group. From the CHTC perspective, they're thinking a lot about, of course, what they're very good about, which is the GPU servers, the CPU servers, the ways that we help people use clusters. But they're also thinking about accessibility to those clusters. You will see this fall a project that we've kind of codenamed Badger Lab. This is going to be a notebook-style interface, though, that enables people to use CHTC without having to have command line experience. And this is something that we'll be able to extend into the classroom. These tools they're very valuable. They decrease the amount of knowledge that you have to use research computing, and they make it so much more accessible. This is something that we've wanted to do for a number of years. RISE has given us the opportunity, though, to bring a community of folks together to do these kinds of things, to deliver these tools. And they're thinking about collaborations with our academic technology group, who is really good at providing online education. And so I don't have to have a consultation with an individual anymore. I go to a Canvas course, I learn about this service, I'm added into a manifest group, and boom, I've got access to that. And in order for that to happen, there's been collaboration, like I say, with our academic technology group, thinking about continuing education and how do I get access to these online courses. Also with our interop group that Lois spoke about earlier this morning about how do I get access into data-driven groups and apply that to what we're designing in CHDC. So really exciting things to come in the future about making research computing more accessible to folks that don't have to have extensive command line experience to use some of these services. The Data Science Institute is thinking a lot about how do we provide data scientists and research software engineers in support of faculty hiring. One of the biggest challenges that our faculty members see when they come to campus is how do I build my group? How do I build or buy or train someone who can be a research software engineer? How do I find that person that can be a data scientist? And so what the Data Science Institute is doing is hiring a number of those folks, and they will be included in faculty startup packages. They will be embedded within research groups so that if you're a new faculty member to this campus or an existing person, you can get access to these folks and really decrease your time to science and increase the productivity that you have as a research group. The Data Science Hub is thinking a lot about communities of practice. How can we bring different groups of folks together around the university for conversation, for learning, for shared experiences? How can we build these really rich communities of practice that make UW-Madison somewhere very, very special? The Research Cyber Infrastructure Group is adding a number of folks. They're adding 4 folks to their team. They're thinking a lot about data, the movement of data, how we collaborate with data, and how we enable more use of public cloud. We're really focused on the Globus, the Globus tool and how we use that to integrate our different data storage platforms, how we invite other folks to use Globus. And then from a public cloud perspective, for those where public cloud makes sense, how do we help you get started in Azure, in Amazon Web Services, in Google Cloud Platform? How do we get you access and consulting to those tools just as quickly as possible? And then lastly, the School of Medicine and Public Health, their IT and informatics group, they've done a lot of work with HIPAA-controlled data and secure cloud access, both, I should say, both cloud as well as on-prem access to folks that need to work with sensitive and restricted data. They're going to be offering that service to others around the university. Each of the groups that we're providing funding to, we're helping them scale what they do, and that we're also saying that yes, we absolutely need you to provide the services that you have, and also we need you to provide those services to folks from around the university who need that kind of service. So kind of back on the topic of collaboration, our Vice Chancellor for Research, Dorota Brzezinska, I asked her to talk with me and to share with me a quote about what collaboration means. And I want to read this quote to her because I think it's really impactful for us as an IT community to see and to really think about. Dorota says, we are grateful to UW-Madison's substantial investments in research computing, public cloud, and secure storage infrastructure over the last 6 years, positioning us to better serve our researchers and to welcome new faculty members who bring with them large amounts of data. Again, that key on data. With free and reduced data storage costs, for example, our researchers can focus more of their funding on their research, which is an attractive incentive for recruiting and retaining RISE faculty to the university. Again, the focus on people. IT research partnerships and application development and research tools across departments, schools, and interdisciplinary research centers are critical to growing the RISE AI initiative and embracing machine learning and big data science approaches. I appreciate everyone's efforts to enhance technical collaboration tools and services, cross-department, college, institution, and industry collaboration is our future. Those words are directly from Dorota, and I think it's really important for us to think about those words as we go about our work and as we go about the projects that each of us are responsible for. So my last slide here is really thinking about that collaboration, is really thinking about the projects that we have underway and how we bring this distributed university together. how we think about the interop project that allows us to move data and collaborate with data and have group access more than we've ever had before. Active Directory consolidation. Think about the power of having a single username and password across this university instead of 53 usernames and passwords. How much easier it will be to collaborate between different groups on this at the university. Data center expansion. Talked about this a little bit, having secure facilities where we have professionals who know how to run data centers. We don't have to have servers in closets. We have backup power. We have fast networking. We have good cooling, et cetera. The projects that our trad group does that helps researchers bring to life their individual projects, our web hosting, our web presence, how we have that look and feel that we need for the projects that we're operating. How we think about data storage, how we think about having secure data storage and cloud access and integration tools available to researchers across the university. And I couldn't, I couldn't not say something about smart access. Um, the folks out there that want access to our data, want access to our intellectual property, that's something that we're going to see more of. And so how do we think about as a university coming together around smart access, around our zero trust strategy? Those folks that were at the workshop that we did, I think last week, that was an amazing start. That was an amazing start. We brought together some really important minds, some really smart people to think about smart access as a university initiative and how we work to drive that forward. And so my question for you, and we have a few minutes left here, but how might you think about furthering collaboration? How might you think about the words from Dorota? And how might you in your area think about furthering collaboration? This is something that all of us have to think about. This is something that all of us have a role in and that all of us are going to be able to help move forward. So with that, thank you for your time today. I think we have a couple minutes left for questions. 2 minutes? Okay. Jason says we have 2 minutes. uh, yeah, do you mind? Thanks, Pat. Or you can come up here next to me if you want. Come on up, buddy. You just need a microphone.
Hey everybody, if you don't know me, I'm Pat Daly. I work at Do It. So admittedly, I've been a little bit on the outside of the whole Rise initiative, like I'm aware of it. I guess it seems like it's a very like front end sort of thing to get faculty into campus. Is there any practical difference like once those faculty are hired and they're in their department? Is there anything different from them compared to existing faculty? Can existing faculty like tap into any of the resources for Rise?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question, Pat. Thank you for asking that. So there is no difference. All of the services that we're making available because of the RISE initiative are available to faculty across the campus. I kind of describe this as RISE is something that has brought us together as a university, and it's benefiting everyone. So when I talked about the expansions at the Center for High Throughput Computing, for example, those are going to be available to existing faculty members as well as RISE faculty members. When we think about the data center initiative, same thing. That's going to be available to existing faculty members as well as new folks. I think what we will begin to see in the next year is that there are some different leads that are being hired over the summer to provide programming that brings RISE folks together as a cohort and helps them think together as a cohort. Those activities also will be made available to folks from around the university. So again, RISE is something that brought us together, and the hope is that it benefits everyone. Is that helpful? Okay. Ryan.
Hey, Todd, thank you so much for your talk. I was curious, you mentioned collaboration. How do you help prevent sort of like duplication of efforts? And you look at something like CHTC, who's getting some RISE funding, and I know they're working on, I think taking in restricted data, and then you have something like the SMPH project, and they're also focused on that, and I'm sure they're doing some unique work. But how do you help those separate projects sort of work together, or make sure they're not pushing in slightly different directions towards the same goal?
Yeah, great question. Thanks, Ryan. And in the investments that we've made and in the committee that recommended those, for the most part, those are non-overlapping investments. The Center for High Throughput Computing is an amazing group, and they have chosen not to pursue restricted data. That's why we are relying on our colleagues in the School of Medicine and Public Health, because that's something that they do really well. They've got a well-defined process for, and when we think of then about them providing services to others on campus, if you have healthcare data, if you have restricted data, we're going to be, building collaborations and helping folks meet up with folks in SMPH. I think going forward, this is where we have to work as a community to be very mindful of our investments and to look for some of those non-overlapping areas, because I don't think we're going to be able to afford those in the future. And I think we're going to have to think very strategically as a university about where do we invest. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to us to invest in the same thing in multiple places. I'd rather bring us together, invest once in an area, do a really, really good job at providing that service, and know that that's kind of our go-to. Is that helpful, Ryan? Okay. Okay, with that, Jason tells me we're at time. Thank you, Jason, for helping to moderate. Thank you to everyone who's joined us both in the room and online, and I look forward to seeing you as the conference goes on. Thanks, everybody.